Hello there, fabulous people. Jen here. So today I'm going to be doing a requested review of the Shadowland Tarot by Monica Bodirsky. So this isn't going to be a walkthrough by any means. There are plenty of those out there. This is just going to be my opinions of this newly released deck. So it has a beautiful box. However, Shifa have improved in the fact of they've now got matte cardstock with this deck, which is fantastic. But when I opened my box, it is all bent up inside, and because the cards came with only a little plastic slip around them, my cards slipped, kind of went all over the place, and the gilding chipped. So it comes with your cards in here, your book on top. I mean, it is a beautifully presented one. I just, as much as we whinge about shrink wrap, it would have made all the difference in the world if my cards had have been shrink wrapped inside, given the inside of the box was already slightly damaged. But anyway, so the book that comes with this deck is quite a thorough, beautiful guidebook. Kind of everything you want in a guidebook. It has a great presentation, beautiful colored images of the cards. It certainly goes in depth, not into just card meanings, but also into, you know, the meanings behind the artwork, which is always fantastic. So I will talk more as we go through about different parts in this book, but some particular things. So just be careful how much I put this up. So, you know, you've got like an introduction, the Shadowland cards themselves, goes through all your cards like normal. Particular thing I love about this book is, just try and hold this up a little bit without burning it on candles, and I'm sorry if there's a reflection because the book is a little glossy. Not only do you get a description of the card, the artwork, you get the keywords, the shadow side, it tells you a whole message about the card, but also particularly in the major arcana, you get indications of what it could mean for health, what it could mean for career, like as in what type of profession this particular major arcana could look at, what type of health issue it could be referring to. Really love that. You get a similar sort of thing within the minor arcana. You get a little bit less detail. Well, not really, I suppose. More in regards to the description of the card. There's often a bit less in your minor arcanas. But you still get, with the exception of professions indicated by it. What I also love about this book is the reflection questions at the bottom of every single card. So this is on all of them, whether it's major or a minor arcana, you get these questions for reflection. And that's a really important part of this to me, and I will explain why as we get to that stage. But let's discuss some of the cards themselves to start with before I get into other aspects of this. So now this is not the full deck because I have certain cards pulled out. Beautifully gold gilded, gorgeous, gorgeous matte cardstock. I adore the backs of these cards. I love the yellow. I think that is something really, really unique. That bright yellow color, and I just love it. Oh, that was the other thing with my deck. It is, you can probably see, this is only part of the deck, but it came with quite a large bend in it, which is a little bit annoying, a little bit aggravating, but, you know, I don't know if you'll see it, but there's a lot of little chips in the side of my cards because of the way the deck fell apart in the packing. But it is a fun deck. It's got lots of depth to it, but all these beautiful, beautiful creatures that you see in the deck just makes it really gorgeous, really unique. I actually think about this deck in terms of a combination of a few of my other favorite decks I love. So yeah, let me just pop these aside for a moment. So things like Tarot of the Magical Forest, the Mons Tarot or Little Monsters Tarot, and even the Deviant Moon Tarot. You know, these, you've got your Tarot of the Magical Forest, which has your gorgeous little creatures in it. And I know this isn't a review of these decks, but you've got your Mons Tarot, which again has these gorgeous but more kind of out there creatures. They're not animals as such, like we've got in the Magical Forest. Very whimsical, but still reads really deep. You've got these kind of crazy cat looking critters, and then I guess coming into it, that reminds me a little of the Deviant Moon from the perspective of just some of the quirkiness that you see in the Deviant Moon. I don't find the Deviant Moon a dark and creepy deck. I find it quite funny and quite a fun, humorous deck to work with. So to me, it almost feels like a blending of all three of these decks that I really, really love. Yeah, so that I guess is how I felt about it when I was first going through images and all of that. So we'll get them out of the way because those aren't the decks that we're talking about. You meet with lots of different characters in this deck. It is very much RWS based, so extremely easy to read if you're familiar with RWS. But just done in such a fun and different and quirky kind of a style. So yeah, love, love, love this deck thus far. So let's talk about some more specifics when it comes to the deck. So something I particularly, let's first talk about the two cards that have changed names in this deck. So we've got the Fool has been changed to the Seeker, and we have Judgment as being changed to Discretion. And again, because, these are the only two names that have changed, but because the guidebook is such a great, great guidebook, you get the full reason why, Judgment is Discretion, okay, rather than being Judgment. So those two are the two that have had name changes, which doesn't bother me at all. They're beautifully fitting with the deck. I particularly like the court cards in this deck. So court cards are, one of those things that we often talk about as being, we struggle more with them. What I found with these court cards is they give really good hints so that it almost makes them easier to read for anyone who does struggle with court cards. You've got your King of Pentacles here. He's clearly adorned with these crystals on his head, but he's sitting down and he's kind of counting his money. It's almost like he's getting his affairs in order and making sure he's got all that done. Your Queen of Pentacles, she's got a whole little cauldron here filled with different elements that are important to, what she characterizes in the deck. Pages, probably not so much. Don't give away as much as what I find the others do. But I just, there's something about these court cards that really speak to the meaning of the court cards if you're someone who does struggle with what the court cards are trying to say. And you know, not to mention the guidebook again gives, you know, really great descriptors of your court cards, which also helps. And I think this deck would be a fantastic beginner deck. The way the guidebook is laid out, the fact that, you know, the imagery is so RWS based, but with its own completely fantastic twist, I think it would be a great beginner's deck. You know, here, the Queen of Swords, like she's here in front of her bookshelf, you know, like just those little added extras that are in the court cards, you know, the Queen of Swords surrounded by her books, you know, the books meaning knowledge, all of this kind of stuff. I don't know, there's something about them that screams to me that, you know, yeah, this is what the court cards mean. Your King of Swords, he's sitting down, you know, he's writing, he's, you know, looking very together there, you know, but yeah, I don't know. So something about these court cards really, really speak to me. I love this Knight of Pentacles riding on his little snail. And, you know, again, he's on a snail, not, you know, your fast-paced bat like we saw with the Knight of Swords. So, you know, he's moving slower than all the other knights. And, yeah, it just really speaks to the meanings of the court cards. So, yeah, I love the court cards in this deck. Okay. Some of the cards in this deck too are, I've loved certain cards, and in particular I've loved some cards that maybe are not necessarily my favorite in other decks. Love this Devil card. I mean, it's so different and to what we see in a Devil card, but it completely speaks to the meaning of a Devil card. You know, he's got his, or what I'm assuming to be his alcohol in hand, and your dollar signs up here spelling out your SOS and your burning building, and he kind of really doesn't give a crap. He's got his headphones on and all absorbed in his own world and his self. Justice is a card that I am not generally fond of in a lot of decks. The traditional justice symbol. I'm sorry, I just realized I should have covered up this little gash I took out of my finger, so do excuse that. But I love this justice card. I love any card, I think, that has a tree in it, that portrays any of its images as trees, which is probably why I love things like the Guardian Tarot so much. And yeah, I just think this is beautiful. This tree's here and he's balancing, you know, the bird on one end, he's balancing the eggs on the other, he's got an owl on his head in her nest, and yeah. Now the Temperance card is probably one of the only cards in the deck that I had to sit with. Everything else, every single other card in this deck has been so self-explanatory. Temperance took me a bit longer. It's probably not my favorite card in the deck, but I mean, I still think it's beautiful. When you read the guidebook, you completely understand it. But yeah, it is literally the only card in the deck that I sort of had to really think about. Everything else is so clear in this deck, the way it's set out. Love, love, love this World card. The World card is another card that I'm generally not very fond of. Adore this. I love the colouring of it. The colour throughout this whole deck is incredible. Moon card. And this is in here, not because I don't like other moon cards. I quite like moon cards, but I love the way this is set up. You know, she's actually got this crab or lobster on a leash. She's taken that lobster with her. Like, come on, we're doing this together. You know, Empress, again, any card that's a tree, particularly an Empress card that is a tree. Love, love, love it. The Hierophant is another card that I generally am not hugely fond of certain depictions, but I really adore this Hierophant. Now, I guess you could argue that it may not scream Hierophant card at first, but I don't know. To me, it says everything the Hierophant needs to say. And I love that, you know, he's got all these tree roots coming down. Yeah, it gives me a much lighter feel to a Hierophant card. I think that's the biggest thing. Again, Wheel of Fortune card is not a card I generally like in a deck. Love this one. Absolutely love it. I couldn't even tell you why. I don't know if it's the colouring of it, because there's aspects that's very traditional. Got cat hair here. No, oh, there we go. So I don't know if it's the colouring. I don't know if it's the fact that we've got the, you know, not your typical animals. But I particularly love how this guy here at this bottom, this little bat guy, is just hanging on for dear life. So yeah, love Wheel of Fortune card. I adore this death card. Again, I like death cards in a lot of decks. But I just love how it's, you know, he's cracked open from the egg. You know, there's more eggs up here and they're going to crack open eventually. There's probably not a lot about it that screams death in the sense of an ending of something. Except for maybe your dead trees back here, but it still gives you everything you need in a death card. So that is that. Now, the aces. Let's talk about the aces in this deck. So I don't know if I can fit them all in, hopefully. Oh, yep, we'll be able to. Okay. Love, love, love the ace cards. However, in particular, and this is getting quite nitpicky, I love the Ace of Pentacles and I love the Ace of Wands. Now, the reason I love these is because of the added extras in them, the added extra people, creatures, whatever you want to call it. So with your Ace of Cups and your Ace of Swords, I mean, they're pretty stock standard. You've got your hand coming out. I mean, you do in your Pentacles and your Wands too. But the added bonus to me is this little guy down here in the Ace of Pentacles and this little creature here who's actually lighting her match. And it just, when you look at the guidebook in particular, so I'm just going to pull up this. So for your Ace of Pentacles, it talks about a very large hand of opportunity emerges from the earth holding a crystal ball, while a seeker looks up in awe. The crystal ball is a gift being presented to the seeker and offers a glimpse into a prosperous future. Like, I love that. I really love that, that even though these do talk about their gifts being given, I don't know, the added extra of this little creature in here who's standing there watching this gift being presented. And, you know, with the Ace of Wands, it talks about a burning hand rises out of the flames to offer warmth and energy to the person seated on their palm, representing support and a helping hand when beginning a new venture. The little person lights a match in response, symbolizing the spark of intent and action that begins each journey. So it made me fall in love with these two aces in particular. Love these as well. They do talk in the guidebook about, you know, being gifts given, but I love this added element, you know, and not everyone's going to like that. A lot of people don't like people in their ace cards, but for me, that just was perfection to me. Okay, something that, again, being very nitpicky. Okay, these are just examples. So it does talk in the book how there are different representations in each of the suits. So it talks about, like, pentacles may appear as pentacles as well as coins. Your swords could be presented by pins or spikes. Wands as staves or sticks, but also appear as chopped wood and candles and brooms, and cups are cups as well as bottles and cans. So all brilliant. So you can see here, 10 of Pentacles, you've got, you know, your 10 stars. 10 of Swords, love this card. Absolutely adore this 10 of Swords. You know, you've got your 10 little, like, needles going in here. your 8 of Pentacles. Again, so RWS, but with its little twists. You've got your 8 skulls that are being decorated here, working hard at them. And even in the 6, even though it's not as in your face, you've got your 2 cups up here, and then there's 4 on the table that they're drinking from. And in your 6 of Pentacles. So you're not seeing any pentacles or coins as such, like it talks about in the books, but you've got 2 prezzies, like 2 apples gifted, 2 hearts being gifted here. So you've got like your 6 showing up. So what I found interesting was that there are 3 cards that do not have that. Well, not that I can see. So if anyone can see it in here, please let me know. Your 5 of Swords. There's, you know, I can't see anything that indicates the 5 elements, that actually physically shows them. Your 5 of Pentacles. Again, I can't see anything in here that shows 5 pentacles or 5 coins. And same with the Knight of Pentacles. It's not in the bars of the cage or anything like that. So if anyone else can find those, please let me know if I'm missing something. Again, it doesn't bother me. It's just for the purpose of reviewing this deck. These are just things that I noticed as I was going through the deck. It makes no difference to how I read it. It hasn't put me off the deck, but I found that really kind of fascinating. Like, why just in 3 cards throughout the entire deck are we not actually seeing that? And like I said, I could be wrong. There's something I may be missing in the deck. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I kind of found that very interesting. So I think those are kind of the main points that I had to make about sort of that overall aesthetic of the deck. It is a beautiful thick deck. Beautiful thick deck. So yeah, gorgeous, gorgeous, beautiful mat. Size-wise, grab out my Centennial. So it probably the tiniest bit, I don't even know if I'm showing that properly. I should probably show it the right way around, shouldn't I? The tiniest bit taller, just by a smidge, and just a little bit shorter width-wise. But yeah, overall, relatively stock standard. Now, as far as this deck having been created as a shadow deck, I know that was its purpose. Just going to mix these up a little because while I talk about this, I'll just go through it a bit. Beautiful shuffling deck too, and it does riffle shuffle well. I'm not a general riffle shuffler, but so as I talk about it, I'll just show some cards, even though we've gone through a lot of them. I think, to me, there is nothing about this deck that makes it any more of a shadow deck than any other tarot deck. It's not the reason I bought the deck. I bought the deck because I love the images. You know, as I mentioned earlier, it sort of reminds me of a combination between like Deviant Moon, Mons Tarot, Tarot of the Magical Forest, all like the cuteness and quirkiness, little bits of the darkness in some of it. You know, it's a little bit darker than, say, like your Mons Tarot deck. But there's nothing specifically in here that screams at me that, yeah, this is 100% a shadow deck. Now, I understand that's why it was made, but I feel like it's more a shadow deck from the perspective of this is how it was created by Monica Bodirsky. It was a shadow deck for her as she created it. And I'm not knocking it as a shadow deck. You can use it as a shadow deck as easily as any other deck, but there's just nothing in it that screams to me that it has any extra qualities to be a shadow deck. The exception to that probably being that because we're not seeing real humans, real animals, we're seeing these quirky characters in here that I think in that case, it makes it a little bit easier to do shadow work with when we're not seeing images of a person that we may not resonate with at all, you know. It's a lot easier to put ourselves in the mode of, you know, pretending like we're this weird creature coming out of the sea with our fins than it is to put ourselves in the mode of, you know, some of the very stereotypical non-diverse images that we see in a lot of decks. So I think that to me is probably the main I guess element to it, factor to it, that I can see as being an advantage of this being a shadow deck. You know, you do not need a dark deck to be a shadow deck. You don't need a light and fluffy deck to be a shadow deck. You don't need a stock standard deck like your typical RWS to be a shadow deck. Any one of those can be a shadow deck to you, and it depends on your interpretation of what shadow work is, how you go about that, what resonates with you as shadow work, what areas of the shadow even that you might need to be working on. So for me personally, there's nothing in this deck that screams, oh yes, this is a definite, absolute perfection deck when it comes to working on the shadow sides. That's just my personal opinion. But in saying that, that does not take away from how much I adore this deck. It's fabulous. Now, there is one other element that makes this deck a good shadow deck to me, which surprised me. As you can see, as I've talked about, as you will have seen in other walkthroughs, this is so RWS. So easy to pick up and read. Okay, now you would think being that way, well, I thought being that way, that means that this would be as easy to read as any other of my favorite decks that I can pick up and go to and just get a quick reading out of. You know, even something like Tarot of the She to me, even though there's a lot in that deck, that is one of my easiest reading decks. You know, it just speaks to me every time. The same way like my Centennial RWS does. This, for me thus far, when I've done like a general 3-card daily read with it, and I've made sure I've used this since I got it because people did want to have my review and I needed to use the deck to review the deck. Fine, no issue, no problem, easy to read as a daily 3-card read. However, I also wanted to make sure that I worked with some of the specific card spreads that came with this book. Okay, I'll just say here too, what you get in the back of this book is also, let me flip to it before I throw it in your face, fantastic. So not only do you get all the stuff I talked about back at the beginning, I don't know how much of this will fit in the screen, but great, how to ask questions, symbolism, so going more into the swords, the pentacles, your cups, your wands, going more into bits of info about your major arcana. You get this whole rundown of quick and easy keywords of your major arcana that you can use. Gives you the numerology. I love that. If you're new to tarot and you want just quick, easy access to what the numerology means, I hate when you've got to search for it in a different book, because it was something that irked me when I was new to tarot. Your court cards, going more into talking about them, reversals, how to shuffle, spiritual hygiene and reading environment. So there's just, really got to be careful of those candles. So much in here. And then your card layouts. So it goes into your basic ones, different types of 3-card spreads that you can do, and then specific ones like a 4 seasons spread we've got, a 5-card element spread, we've got a 6-card integration path, A 7-card Shadows of the Past spread, 9-card Blockbuster, moon spread, so a 4-card moon cycle spread, and a 13 moon spread, which is like sort of your year ahead reading. Now, I went through, because I really wanted to give a good review of this, a thorough review. I guess whether it's good or not is up to everyone who's watching this' opinion. But I did all of these spreads with the exception of the year ahead spread. And because it's so RWS based, because it just screams its meanings easily. I mean, you don't have to look deep into this deck to understand it. However, in doing those bigger spreads, I would do the spread and go, what the hell are you trying to tell me? I don't understand you. I don't understand what you're saying. And that was when this book was perfection. Because I would go and I would read the description in the book, and it might be one line in there that was different to anything else I'd read before that would go, aha. Or it would be in these reflection questions that I talked about that would be that key for me into getting the deeper image. Oh, crap, I just burnt. That was lucky. I could have burnt my whole book on fire then. I just burnt one of the tags hanging out the top of it. So in that sense, I definitely had to go deeper into what these readings that came with the book were trying to tell me. Now, could that have been the mood I was in at the time of reading it? Yep, it could have. It's not been my best week. I've been very down, very drained. So maybe it could have been that. But I don't think so, because I've used other decks for readings that have come into my possession, like in particular my Barber Studios Alice deck is another one I've sort of worked with as far as doing actual readings with this week. And even doing the spreads in that book, it read beautifully, easily. I didn't need to look up meanings. It was all clear. Whereas this surprised me. This really surprised me at some of the cards it threw at me, that I needed to dig deeper into what the guidebook was saying. And I haven't relied on a guidebook in doing a reading for the longest time. I couldn't tell you the last time I went to a guidebook to read what the meaning actually said. But it definitely gave me more info and answered the questions more deeply in doing that. So I guess there could be that element, that hidden element to it. And I don't even know the proper way to describe it because it was so odd to me. But that hidden element that could make it more of a shadow deck, that even though it looks obvious and it looks out there, maybe this deck was going, aha, sucker, I'm going to show you that I am more complicated than what you thought I was going to be. So, yes. Can it be used as a shadow deck? Absolutely. Is there anything that sets it apart as a shadow deck? Not that I can see. Not in my opinion. But yeah, that is my review of the beautiful Shadowlands Tarot. Highly recommend this deck. I don't really have anything bad to say about it other than Schiffer's packaging, which is still better than it has been in the past. And the fact that we get beautiful matte cardstock with it and all of that completely makes up for the little chips on the edge of my deck. And that's okay. It's going to be a deck I'm going to work with a lot and we'll probably chip anyway. So yes, so that is my review of the Shadowland Tarot by Monica Bodirsky. Definitely recommend it and giving it a try. So thank you for joining me, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.